Up next, we have interactive storytelling and the role of AI in play with Jay Chatlani. Jay?
Hello. This session is going to be a little bit more interactive than the ones that you've probably seen previously. I like to be a little more friendly with my audience, get to know them. So before I get started, I'd like to ask a simple question. How many of you guys here have heard of the fourth wall? One, two, three, four. Only four, six people. Wow. Wow, tough crowd. Okay. So, for all of you who don't know, the fourth wall is essentially this sort of gap between the audience and the participant in the thing that you are watching, interacting with. It's the wall that divides you from the characters that you know and love. Now, what's very interesting and what I'm going to mostly talk about today is how AI absolutely shatters that fourth wall. No longer does your favorite character just wave at you and say hi from the audience, from the screen. He now actually knows you, interacts with you, becomes your friend, everything that follows on from there. And this was not what I was originally going to be speaking about. I was originally going to walk you through how, you can use AI models to actually enhance the storytelling. You can build things using it. You can very carefully allow people to have curated experiences. I was going to talk about all that, but no, this is by miles way more important. If you can actually truly interact with the audience member through the use of a screen, a toy, whatever the medium through which you intend on having AI interact with your user, you now have a much more powerful experience that can be delivered. Um, so what's interactive is nowadays we are witnessing the birth of a totally new medium of storytelling, one where the audience is not just a watcher. They are now an active participant in deciding how the story goes and what can happen. By the way, there's not going to be any slides, so if you guys are getting ready to take pictures or whatnot, don't worry about it. Just listen. So, a brief history of the fourth wall. The fourth wall term comes from theater because that was the first place that we ever truly put a big sort of stop between the audience and the people acting. It was a way to show that, okay, look, you guys are separate, we're separate, don't interfere in the play, else you're going to miss out on some of the storytelling. Because it's hard to adapt on the fly. It's hard to come up with the perfect line for exactly what the audience member just said. And it's also very difficult for me to interact with each and every single one of you here today without not interacting with everyone else. AI totally again breaks that facade. We are now we have a opportunity where people can be delivered truly individualized content from things that they know and love that also know and love them. So let's talk a little bit about the four stages of the fourth wall erosion, which is ironic because four and four, but in any case, we start with this rigid barrier. So one-way narratives, books that you read. How many of you guys here read books? Okay, decent show. Good to see that you guys are still intelligent. Many people in Silicon Valley no longer read books. It's quite interesting. So, in any case, you have traditional books, you have traditional toys consumed exactly as they were created. These are things that were made by the guy, written down, and then they're delivered to you, and you interpret them how you will. You can choose your own interpretation, but at the end of the day, you're still reading exactly what the person wrote for you, which is great. It is truly, truly great. It is very important to understand things that other people have, to understand perspectives, to understand all of that. It's very good to have one-way storytelling, but things can move and adapt beyond that. So you have children's classics like Goodnight Moon, which is the same experience for a reader every time, which again, children really like. Children will frequently go back to the same books that they enjoyed again and again and again because it gives them warmth, it gives them happiness. That same sort of feeling can be created through AI via experiences that are similar, but again, these are totally different. Like, both mediums are to be heavily respected. But then we move onwards a little bit. So you get to the transparent barrier. You get to things like choose your own adventure. You get to things like very, very basic games. Has anyone here played Zork? Sounds familiar? That is what I thought. Zork was one of the very, very early text adventure games. Now, the text adventure game phenomenon became very huge way back when because it was the first time that people could demonstrate agency in choosing how pathways would go. It allowed them to go back to that very feeling when they first started telling stories around a campfire. That's how storytelling really came to be, right? It was a vehicle for man to be the hero of his own story. But that is no longer the case. AI allows us to bring it back to that one very simple thing. It allows us to make man the hero of his own story. So I mentioned this transparent barrier, and things get even better after that. We get to the permeable barrier. We get to open world role-playing games like World of Warcraft. How fun! Or Mass Effect. Now, these things have consequential choices. If you look at The Sims, the way that you push your character, the things that you give them, the actions you have them take will not just affect their lives, but also the lives of every other character in the Sims universe. And that's interesting. People are very fascinated by this concept of, oh, I can now interact with the characters that are part of my universe that I am being told to interact with. They really, really enjoyed it. Sims became one of the most popular games. I think Goliath over there actually just took the license back for them, which was quite interesting. So evidently very hot. Minecraft, perhaps the most popular game in the world and definitely one of the most popular licenses here from what I can tell. Again, a very permeable, open game where people are allowed to truly influence the things that happen within the game that they are playing, which in turn makes them more interested in doing things. If you give a person agency and you tell them that they are, like you make them aware that they now have that agency, they really like to exercise it. Agency is perhaps one of the most powerful things for a human to have, and it is also the most focal thing from a pedagogical perspective to actually teach to children. If children are agentic, they will then be able to go on and do great things in life. They will learn whatever they want to learn. They will make happen whatever they want to make happen. So boosting agency in any way, shape, or form is always a very good thing for both the child and the participant. Now, finally, the fourth stage, we're moving into the dissolved barrier. There is no more fourth wall. Your audience does not just interact a little bit with the participant or the actor or the creator or the cartoon or whatever you'd like to call it. The participant is now part of the universe. The fourth wall has been extended to include our universe. And this is where things get super interesting because you can have your companions develop authentic relationships based on unique interactions that they have had with a AI toy, which I imagine some of you here must be in the process of trying to create, because otherwise why would you be watching all of us talking? You'd be around walking the booths or whatever. So in any case, those singular interaction points where users demonstrate keen emotion towards the companion that they are talking to are bits and pieces that you want to really pick up on. So we have this simple sort of principle that helps build all the AI toys that we're working on called episodic memory. Now, episodic memory is this thing that essentially, so actually, I'll give you guys a little thought experiment. All of you here in this room, well, some of you here in this room are thinking you're listening to me. Some of you are totally just tuned out. But the ones who do think they are listening to me aren't even actually listening to me. The way your brain works is you are constantly predicting everything that's going on right now. Every time a prediction does not align with your idea of reality, your brain will switch on and say, hey, I'm surprised. Now that surprise will actually go on to create a lasting memory. So whoever was surprised by the fact that I just called you out for not listening will probably remember this segment of my speech. Now, this is very powerful and very effective because if you train AI models to be able to have this sense of episodic memory, which we've done, they now remember key components of the adventures or the dialogue or whatever went on with the child that they're interacting with. It means that they pick up on things. They remember not just what happened, but the emotions and the feelings of what happened during that specific time. They know how they felt, they know how the user felt, which is very important in developing an emotional bond, which in turn is very important for building an AI toy or whatever you'd like to call it that actually lasts. And this is a big problem because when I first got into this space with AI and storytelling and toys, I had zero clue what I was doing. But we tested a product with a child, and the child was super interested for the first 30 minutes, and then gone. Their attention spans are fickle. keeping those attention spans is really hard, and it relies on something that the toy industry had known about for a very long time, but seems to have forgotten. Storytelling, the most simple principle known to man, the first invention, if you'd like to call it that. We have to bring back that world of storytelling into toys and allow people to interact with toys in ways that we've never seen before, actually really pull out the character. So it falls down to character design, actually, really, for you guys here looking to make AI toys. You need to really build out a character that users want to interact with, that they find interesting, that they are happy to bond with. Someone that you would want as your friend, or not even necessarily your friend, someone that you would be interested in interacting with. So like, for example, we've been looking at this one thing called Bubbles the Clown. Now, Bubbles the Clown is this rude, snarky, sarcastic, incredibly rude clown, obviously. So Bubbles is a very interesting thing because we've noticed that despite it being super rude, people are still incredibly happy to interact with it. Why? Because it has a distinct character. So when it comes, like when you're now interacting with that character that you enjoy interacting with, it forms emotions, it forms bonds, and then the toy will then leverage that in future interactions to ensure that you don't churn. So something like Bubbles. So we started out trying to build this magical children's toy. First, it was a little plushie that would talk to the child, which we realized doesn't work. So any of you here who are trying to build AI toys, I would like to just firsthand point out that we've noticed that without any form of anima, like, so we figured out that eyes were the most important part of this, but if you don't have any significant form of anima, the child sort of has this uncanny valley experience with the toy. They get sort of pushed away and they're like, this thing that evidently isn't meant to be talking is now talking to me. It creates a dissonance in their head. They're very happy to invent worlds and stories and whatnot for the toys that they have been given that are totally inanimate. But when they now try to perpetuate that sort of, here I am, here's my story, here's how I work thing, and it's dissonant, it just doesn't work for them. But in any case, we did lots of work on it, and we built that robot for children that we're now in the process of building. Bubbles was a byproduct of that. So Bubbles took us like about 2 months of work, but this was on the back of about 1.5 years of work on.
From development to learning, machine learning, and everything else. I mean, are we looking at a budget of 6 figures, 7 figures, or 8 figures?
I would say certainly 6 figures. Anything above 6 figures, you guys are being scammed.
But it depends on the complexity as well.
It certainly does depend on the complexity. Like, if you were discussing something like Aurora, then probably more in range of like 7 figures. You asked about Bubbles. So.
I'm familiar with Aurora, and that budget was.
That budget is ridiculous.
In the 8
in the
figures.
7 figures.
Yeah, 7, 8. Yeah. So it definitely costs money to develop AI.
Certainly.
That's why we don't see it at the show.
The vast majority of the Toy Fair people that have been exploring and sort of trying to use AI have been doing so via OpenAI, which introduces 2 particular problems. OpenAI, obviously, many people must have spoken to you about the data risks and this and that, but it really boils down to just 2 problems. Problem 1, you have to pay money to actually use OpenAI, so you're renting their servers. And those servers cost them money, so they're going to charge that onwards to you because otherwise they'd go bankrupt. So that immediately locks out most of the toy market because most of these guys are running on incredibly low margins. They have this issue, that issue, and they're like, no, we definitely can't get our users to pay for a subscription. That's just not happening. So what we've done is we've built models that are small enough and powerful enough that they run locally on your mobile device. That's how we got past that, but it's not an easy challenge.
Do you offer, so are you the only one that does not use OpenAI?
No, I would imagine other people are also trying. I mean, there's a lot of people here that I've met that are using open source models to try to like piece together bits and pieces of the infrastructure.
But it's still connected to the internet.
Still connected to the internet.
So you have found a way to avoid the security issue. Does your company provide that as a service?
Yeah. We're working with some people right now to integrate this technology into toys that they're making.
It's the one to be. less security risks,
Yep.
and you've already spent the money in development. That's great.
So just finishing off before we jump into proper Q&A from everyone else, some of the key components that go into making a very, very, very good AI toy for all of you here interested in doing so. The first one is mutual awareness. So the toy needs to not just be aware of itself, but it also needs to be aware of the user. And this awareness allows it to shape the types of things that it's saying, the way that it's responding. The more info it has about the user, the better. And if you guys are doing this locally, then you get past all the security issues. Otherwise, you can anonymize the data. You can just feed it through in chunks. There are technical ways to get past it, but making sure that it's anonymous does help. So past that mutual awareness, the second thing is the episodic or persistent memory, as I mentioned. The more it knows about the person that it's interacting with, and the more that it remembers not just the things that they have talked about, but the feelings that they had with the user, again, the better, because it can reference those things, and that forms an in-group, and the in-group then encourages the person to keep interacting with it more and more. Third thing is emotional intelligence. So how many of you here in this room have emotional intelligence? Wow, 2 people. Damn, that is rough. I feel sorry for everyone else that's not in this room interacting with everyone here. But in any case, AI can have more emotional intelligence than us. AI is actually very, very, very good at handling difficult situations with potentially difficult people. It's been shown to be a great conflict mediator. It's been shown to be a great negotiator. And all of these skills are very emotional intelligence heavy, which means that it is already primed to interact with users like children. We just need to set it up and give it all the things that make it good for doing so. Fourth is collaborative authorship. So whenever the AI model or whatever is generating content for the user, you should try to involve the user in the process as much as possible. If you're using some sort of thing that generates images for the user, you should really pry into the image that the user wants generated. If you're creating a collaborative story along with the user, something Dungeons and Dragons themed, you should really, really let the user take most of the talking time, and instead, via the toy, just introduce bits and pieces like, oh, here's what happened after you rolled your die, you wandered here, you did this, you did this. Let the user be in charge of the experience. That is really, really important. And then the fifth one is adaptive reality, which follows on from that. It's like, if you let the user be in charge of the experience, they're shaping the entire universe and world that sits around it. So wrapping up now, I know I have only 2.5 minutes left. AI is super important. It allows us to break past the fourth wall. And because it allows us to break past the fourth wall, it allows us to truly involve the user in the narrative that's going on, which makes them more emotionally connected. So you have to keep that emotional connection going. You keep track of it. You make sure that the AI remembers all of it. And then you have a bond with the user that will make them a lasting customer for life. Anyone have any questions? I know I only have 2 minutes left, but.
So I just had a question in terms of, they're kind of related, but one is like, how are you training specific characters into these models? And then a follow-up question is kind of like, what are the guardrails in terms of content, where it's like, I've trained a character who's like snarky, but then if it's, how's that making sure that that's still appropriate for kids?
Great question. So when it comes to how you actually train these models, you have a multitude of ways. Our personal preference is low rank adaptation, which is a type of training that you can run on AI models. Obviously, some of you here can just go the basic route and you can just prompt it. The only reason that we use low rank adaptation is because we have specific models that we've built to be super conversational, super friendly, and all that kind of stuff. And then we need to layer a personality on top of it while still keeping it small enough to run locally on your mobile device. So we have a couple bits and pieces that we need to juggle. But otherwise, you can just prompt, you can fine tune. Personal preference, low rank adaptation. When it comes to how we keep it safe and how we put guardrails on, Meta Llama have actually put out a full comprehensive set of rails. We built our own, but Meta have given you an open source set of rails that you can tinker with and modify. They're pretty good. They're pretty robust from what we've tested. When it comes to that snarky clown character, we have not made it child safe and child friendly. It is definitely not intended for children. It will be sold with a R-rated label and everything. Our main product is a children's product. It's called Aurora. It's this magical children's companion that will play. It's a robot. It's about like this big, has eyes for screens and everything. that is for children, and that is the only thing we will release for children. Because we think that, like, as I mentioned, right, you need that anima, it needs that real spark of magic. So we put a lot of time and effort into building that. But other things we're building for different demographics. Any other questions? Or I guess not, time's up. Okay, you guys, you can catch me somewhere else if you'd like to ask any questions.